welcome to the Daily Geeky Pastimes. I need to do that again, don't I? The Daily Geeky Pastimes podcast number 40 with all the gaming news from the 29th of May 2023. I hope you're all doing very well. Just before I start properly with the news and stuff, massive thanks to everyone that turned out for the UK Call of Duty Community Night on Saturday. We played some games of Warzone. I think we played 4 games of Warzone, just custom solos. Had a lot of fun. People won prizes. Juntil won 2 of them because he was insanely good. But it was awesome. So thank you so much to everyone that turned out for that. It was really cool that everyone was like really, really positive. We had like 70 people in the chat for a lot of it. And I didn't see anybody getting like massively salty or anything like that. When people got killed and were taken out of the game, they'd just be like, GG to whoever got them. Everyone was celebrating the people that won. It was just really nice. There wasn't people like criticizing each other or whining about each other. It was just really, really positive. Kind of like what I've been saying for ages, I'd love Call of Duty to be more of. Like, it wasn't hyper competitive. It was much more, hey, this is a bunch of people having a laugh on a Saturday night. It's something that we might keep doing, so we might keep doing some kind of community nights. Maybe not every week. We'll see what the numbers are like. And I won't have prizes from Activision. Thank you to Activision UK, Call of Duty UK for providing the prizes on Saturday. But yeah, we might keep it going sort of like whenever I think, you know, there's maybe a new season or something like that. So do keep an eye on it. And if I can find any other creators, you know, maybe joining up with another community, I would love to do that. So if you know of another creator, if you are another creator who you think would be up for doing something like that, like running some joint Warzone customs nights, maybe on Saturday nights, let me know. I'll definitely be up for speaking to you. But anyway, that was just my little plug for something that's already happened, which isn't something I really need to do, I suppose. But we have quite a lot of news, and because it's a Monday morning, we're going to start with the game releases for this week. And it's a pretty big week for game releases. Last week we had Gollum, and that was it. So yeah, let's not talk about that anymore. But this week we've got 3 games that I would say are a pretty big deal, and 1 game that I would say is not, but I want to talk about it because it's really funny. By the way, if you're watching the podcast live on YouTube, thank you. Don't forget to like the stream. It does help me out a bunch. You can listen to this every morning being recorded live on youtube.com/Geeky Pastimes at 9 a.m. BST, you know, because it's the summer, so it's British summertime. And then I put it up onto Spotify, iTunes, all places like that shortly afterwards, where you can listen to it on a podcast service of your choice. Right, so the game releases. The first one coming out tomorrow is the System Shock remake. And this is a weird one because the System Shock remake is something that has been, it feels like it's been in the works for basically forever. Like, it feels like this has been going on for an incredibly long time. It's being made by a developer called Night Dive Studios. I don't really know them. Like, I don't know much about them. But apparently they have done like remastered versions of lots of games in the past. So they did a System Shock Enhanced Edition back in 2015. They did a remake of Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, and Turok 2. I vaguely remember them. They did Forsaken Remastered. I was trying to remember the name of Forsaken the other day. It's like this shooting game that was like an early thing that showed off like 3D graphics cards on PCs. They did a remake of Doom 64 in 2020. Shadowman Remastered. Quake they did a remake of. Sin they did a remake of. That's a game I haven't fought for a long while. Oh, apparently they're working on that now. It's not even out yet. And Rise of the Triad. And Blade Runner. You know, that old point and click adventure Blade Runner game. Lots and lots of games that were games that I wouldn't even say were classics back in the day, but were like fun games. You know, I loved the Turok games. I loved Shadowman. I thought they were really cool back in the day. And they've done a lot of these remakes. I've not heard of them, which worries me a little bit. I don't know whether any of these remakes were like really good, whether they were terrible. I've got no idea. Like the Turok remakes, I remember hearing that they were happening, and I never heard of anyone playing them, which worries me a bit. But anyway, they have System Shock happening. Is this the right company that I'm thinking of? I think so. Yeah, it is. And yeah, it's meant to be. Yeah, it is Night Dive Studios for sure. I was just double checking there. And apparently they announced that they were going to remake this in 2015. So they were going to remake it in Unity in 2015. And this is 8 years later. This is finally coming out. System Shock's a weird one where I've never played it properly. I didn't play it when it came out. I don't know. It just came out, I suppose, it came out in 1994. I was 8. I wasn't really like playing PC games. I don't think we had a gaming PC or anything like that back in 1994. So I just like wasn't aware of it back then. And then I've heard of how good it was. You know, I've heard of a lot of the memes and stuff about it. I've heard of a lot of the interesting things about it and how it inspired, you know, obviously System Shock 2 and BioShock and stuff like that. But I went back to try and play it. I would say probably like 10 years ago. I went back to try and play it. I just sort of downloaded it on Steam and I just couldn't. It was like too dated, too old, too aged. I was like, yeah, this isn't really sort of something I can get into. So I'm interested. Like I'm interested in this remake. I have like asked them to see if they'll send me over a key to stream it a little bit. If they do, I'll sort of stream it tomorrow. But yeah, like I'm curious to see what it's like. I haven't seen much of the remake, but I saw a couple of articles saying that like it might be okay, it might be good. Yeah, it'll be cool. I just saw Andy Smith in a chat said it's a really weird concept for a studio just doing remakes. I think there's a few that do it. I know there's Blue Point, seen as like the kings of remakes. You know, they did the Demon Souls remake recently, which was super, super good. And I know they're the ones that everyone, whenever someone announces a remake, everyone's like hoping it's going to be Blue Point because they've done a really good job of other games in the past. And then there's one studio that has done all of the ports for games like Last of Us did the PC port, which was obviously didn't go very well. And I feel like they did it for like Arkham Knight or something as well. And everyone was like, "Oh no, whenever they do it, it's always terrible." So it's like it's kind of interesting looking at these like remake studios and these porting studios to see how they go. Like well, on PC on Call of Duty, I think Beanox are the Call of Duty PC porter people. Like they're the ones that make the PC version of Call of Duty. And that's something that I always see kind of missed out. You know, you see people angry ranting at Infinity Ward or something for some PC problem. And it's like, I'm pretty sure it's Beanox who handle the PC ports, but anyway, fine. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing. There's like, we're getting to the point of gaming where the gulf between what happened, what the games that came out in, you know, the early days are now considered classics, but are just basically unplayable now. And what like the quality bar is now for gaming is so huge that like there's tons of games that could do well with a remake, you know, could be remade. And there's like, you know, lots of gamers now who just weren't alive when the originals came out, who might be interested in play it, like the System Shock remake. You know, there's loads of games like that. Like Thief, it would be awesome if it had a remake. The original Deus Ex would be awesome to have a remake. You know, some of the games obviously have had reboots or remakes, like Doom or Tomb Raider, stuff like that. It'll be really interesting, like to see. I'm always interested to see where they go. Like Wave Racers never had a remake, and that seems like a shame. I'd love to see one of that or F-Zero. You know, some of the Nintendo properties. It would be cool if they brought them back. But yeah. So anyway, that's coming out tomorrow. System Shock remake's coming out tomorrow. I'm interested about it. Apparently, there was a demo of it 3 years ago, which is crazy because I don't know whether there's that many games that have had a demo 3 years between like the. Hello, hopefully we're back. Oop. Hopefully we're back, and nope, that's the Call of Duty community night. Need to switch back to. Need to switch back to YouTube one. There we go. Stream, you'll have to tell me if you can see me again, but I think we should be back. So that was weird. The entire streaming PC just blue screened. I hope that's not an ongoing problem. I think there was a Windows update recently, and I'm hoping that's not a constant thing. Anyway, let's carry on with the game releases. So, Street Fighter 6 is coming out June 2nd. So that's coming out on Friday. I had no idea this was coming out so soon. And this is the most excited I've been about a Street Fighter game. Like literally forever, I think. Maybe Street Fighter 4 because, you know, it was like a big return for the franchise. I hadn't played it for a long while. I never played Street Fighter 3. But no, Street Fighter 6, I'm really excited to play. Mostly because the campaign mode looks really cool. Like I played it a little bit in the beta, and the like performance of the campaign mode was really bad. Like the fights seemed to happen at 30 frames a second, which worried me a little bit. I really hope that's not the case. Like that, I hope it does run smoothly. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's like I think when people talk about a campaign mode in fighting games, lots of different things come to mind. You know, Call of Duty had a fun story, not Call of Duty, sorry, Mortal Kombat had a fun story, but the fighting was a little bit kind of slapdash. And then there's, you know, other fighting games have had things that have just been very, very kind of essentially like it's an arcade mode. You know, there's just like cutscene fight, cutscene fight, cutscene fight, which I guess is what Mortal Kombat was. Street Fighter is not like that. Street Fighter is like a full open world. You can run around, challenge people to fight, do little side quests and stuff. It looks really interesting. You have a full like character creator, and you go around the world looking for like all of the different main fighters to train you. I'm really interested now. I'm really excited about that. It is unfortunate the day it's coming out because I'm going to be playing a different game, but I'm definitely like up for playing that at some point. It'll be interesting to see who else gets Street Fighter as well. Like, it'd be cool. That would be a really fun game to do some community nights on. You know, if I can get like 10 people in the stream who really like Street Fighter, who are bad at it like I am, you know, people who enjoy playing it, but also aren't bothered about learning all the combos and everything like that. I think we could have some really fun community nights on that. So maybe we'll do something like that. It'd be very cool. Then, also on June 2nd, we have a game that if my wife is listening now, she's going to laugh when she hears about this, because I didn't know this was coming out this week. We have We Love Katamari Reroll on June 2nd. That's going on Friday. Now, this is the game that I said isn't a big deal, because for years, and I mean years, like maybe a decade, I was always excited when a new Katamari game came out, and I would always buy it. And then every single time I've bought Katamari, no matter what they call it, it's always the same bloody game. It's always the exact same game, and I load it up, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know, maybe the menus are the same because it's a sequel, so that makes sense. And then you get into the first level, and you're in like a little Japanese living room, and you're kind of going around picking up some like dominoes and stuff like that, and then eventually you pick up pieces of sushi, and then you go outside into the street, and then you see there's like cats and stuff there, and you're like, wait a minute, I've played this game. And every time I've been like, maybe they just start similarly, and I keep on playing it, and you go through these different levels until eventually you get to the one where you're rolling around picking up islands and stuff, and then you pick up planets, and then you're in space. It's always the same bloody game. Like, I have no idea how many games there are in the Katamari series, but I'm pretty sure they're all the exact same game. Like, I know like they might have added features, like one of them might have co-op or something like that, but it's the same single player game, and it's really annoying. And this one's called We Love Katamari Reroll, so I assume it's just a re-release or you know, upscaled version of We Love Katamari that I'm pretty sure is just a newer version of Katamari Damacy, which is the first game. So I think they're just releasing the same game again. It's really funny when you see people talking about, you know, Todd Howard milking Skyrim and releasing it on everything, or Rockstar and GTA 5 and how they've released that on 3 different generations and stuff. People never seem to talk about Katamari and the fact that this is always the same game. It genuinely makes me feel like I'm going crazy sometimes when I, like, you know, it'll say on Game Pass that there's a new Katamari game coming out and you load it up. It's like, oh yeah, I can't wait. And then it's just the same bloody game. It's the same. And it doesn't even look that different, you know. Over time, the edges have got a little bit sharper, the resolution's a little bit better, the draw distance might be a bit better, the frame rate might be a bit better. But it's the same game. Like, it controls the same. You have the same obstacles. The scoring is still the same. The story is still the same. I have no idea. Oh, sorry. I'm talking about this as if everyone knows. For anyone who doesn't know what Katamari Damacy is, Katamari is the game where you might not know the name, but you might know the game where you are a little man and you have a sticky ball. You got a ball that's like the size of you, and you push it. And if you run into stuff that's smaller than the ball, it will stick to the ball because it's sticky. And you go around maps making the ball bigger by sticking more and more things to it. And obviously, as the ball gets bigger, because things stick to it, you can roll up bigger things. So the idea is, you know, you start off, say, in the house, you pick up dominoes and stuff, and then eventually you can pick up like pens, and then you can go up onto a table and pick up like cutlery and sushi and stuff. And then you might be able to pick up like, you know, golf balls or something. And then you might be able to pick up tennis balls, and then you go up. And it's it's very wacky and funny. You know, you can pick up like people and cats and boats and stuff. And it's split into levels. So, you know, there'll be a target of like, get the ball to at least 1 meter. And you have to do that. Or like, pick up as many hot things as you can. You got to go around trying to find like fires and stuff like that. It's that kind of thing. It's very, very silly. And it's like, it is a fun game, but I've just played it like 5 times. I've been tricked into playing it like 5 times, and I just don't want to bloody play it anymore. I don't want to play the same game again. And if it comes onto Game Pass, I'm sure I probably will. I'll install it being like, maybe this will be a different game. And it won't be. It'll be the exact same bloody game. Yeah, I do. I like the idea of there being re-releases of Skyrim. Andy Smith was just saying he doesn't understand the hate with a re-release when it comes to like of Skyrim. How dare they make a slightly better version of this overwhelmingly positively received game? It's definitely like there's some line that where it becomes slightly annoying. Like, you know, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto 5, I think I bought it 3 times. You know, I bought it on the Xbox 360, then I bought it on the Xbox One, then I bought it on PC. And every time it was like, oh, there's some small improvement. There's something that makes it a little bit better. And with Skyrim, I've probably bought it 3 times. Like I probably bought it originally on Xbox, then on PC, then I bought the PlayStation VR version. And it's like, okay, there's like one new feature. And it's like, then you look at some other games where it's been the same game the whole time for all those generations, and they just keep on like updating it for free. And it's like, oh, that sort of like gives me this thing, you know, I bought this game originally, now I get the free upgrade. That's super cool. But obviously that, you know, it doesn't make sense. We've talked on this podcast before about how people need to make money and how developers make money and, you know, the different methods they can do it. And giving away stuff for free probably isn't the best way to make money. Unless you then have some kind of microtransactions or something like that, which obviously isn't ideal. It's interesting. Joe Biden is back in the chat today, and he said, are you the only person who thinks Skyrim is overrated? I mean, I'm probably not. I don't think that's a particularly hot take. I think it's a super good game. Skyrim's one of those games that's like, there just isn't anything else really like it. Like, even if you go from the Elder Scrolls games, you know, if you're a fan of the Elder Scrolls series and you went from like Daggerfall to Morrowind to Oblivion to Skyrim, each one of those jumps would like utterly blow your mind. Like the games were just incredibly better. Like they're so good, and they've all got like, you know, the Bethesda jank, and there's always been problems with Bethesda games. Like the combat normally isn't very good, and their character models are bad, and you know the animations and stuff like that are bad. But in terms of making an open world where you can kind of just go and do what you want, and there's very few constraints on what you're allowed to do, and having like those almost immersive sim elements of being able to play with the sandbox and achieve quests in like your own way. You know, a quest will say, hey, get this item out of this house, and it's kind of, it's entirely up to you how you do it. Do you want to make an invisibility potion and a bunch of armor that makes you very hard to see, and then sneak in after someone? Do you want to kill someone who's got the key and then just murder any guards that are around there? Do you want to find that there's some secret entrance in a long forgotten cave and then come up through the fireplace or something and grab it? Do you want to just sort of like win over someone who was in the house, do a quest for them, and then find a way in? Like all of that kind of stuff, which is like constant throughout the entire world of Skyrim. And it's so unbelievably huge where like, if you just do the main quest of Skyrim, you've probably seen like 10% of the game. There's so much optional stuff. Like there's so much stuff spread out, and there's like different cultures. There's like some really, you know, pretty good writing and lore and stuff like that. It's super interesting. And then obviously Skyrim's been like has been benefiting for years now of super interesting mods and things like that. Like people have kept that game going in really, really interesting ways because they've supported modders, you know, and they've even tried to make it an agreement where modders can get paid and stuff like that. They've done a lot of things. So I feel like they really did sort of push the whole Western RPG kind of genre forwards a little bit. They sort of set a new bar for like, this is what your world should be like. And there's lots of things, you know, that now people love in games like, you know, Tears of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom and stuff like that. Well, I think it kind of had its roots in what Skyrim and Oblivion did, just with like presenting an open world like that. There just wasn't really games like that before. And you know, still people don't really make games in the same way that Bethesda Game Studios do. The like games like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, like Oblivion, Skyrim, they are very much kind of, no one else has the resources to make some of that. We might talk about that a little bit later if we've got time, or we might talk about it tomorrow. But yeah, it's kind of crazy, and that's why people are excited about Starfield. Like that's why people get. I know, by the way, I said Fallout New Vegas, and I know that's actually Obsidian, but it was built on all of the stuff that they'd made at Bethesda GameWorks. But yeah, like I think that's the main thing that makes people excited about Starfield is that it is Bethesda Game Studios making it, and that they've been making it for a very long time. It's like that's enough of a pedigree where people are like, okay, Fallout 4 wasn't that great, Fallout 76 was kind of bad, but you've had enough hits, you've done enough with kind of this genre to earn enough goodwill. It's a pretty spectacular game. Joe Biden said just the writing puts you to sleep. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. You've got like, there's games for you as well. You can enjoy the Call of Duty campaigns or whatever. The writing's like, I think the writing's good, and there's so much of it. Like, there's so many different storylines and stuff in it. Some are better than others. There's a great variety. I think it's very, very good. Andy Smith says, really hope whenever the next Elder Scrolls game comes to all platforms after the merger, it's such a cultural phenomenon that I hope people get to play it. I would assume it won't come to PlayStation. Andy Smith. I'd be surprised if it does. I mean, Starfield isn't. I don't think there's any reason why they should make the next Elder Scrolls game. I mean, it's still going to be like 6 hours or something like that. It's going to be absolutely ages. Because they said that they weren't really going to go into full production on next Elder Scrolls until Starfield was finished. So I think we're going to be waiting for a very long time for that. Right. Then the next game. So we're just talking about, somehow we've gone on to Bethesda. We're actually talking about We Love Katamari. Oh, so it's talking about game re-releases. Then we get onto the big game that's coming out this week, which is Diablo 4. And I'm so excited about this. This is coming out Thursday night at midnight if you have the deluxe version pre-ordered, which is a little bit more expensive than the main version because it includes the Battle Pass. It's like Call of Duty, you get versions that just include the Battle Pass. You're basically paying like an extra £10, £15 or something to have the Battle Pass. It's that, but you get to play it from June the 2nd, but it's like midnight, so it's the night of June the 1st. So it's Thursday night, basically. Diablo 4 comes out, and I am super excited about it. Like, unbelievably excited about this game. It's probably like, I'd say Starfield is probably my most anticipated game of the year, but Diablo 4 is a very close second. I can imagine, in terms of my streaming and content creation, Diablo's gonna be like probably the biggest game this year, other than whatever the new Call of Duty is. But I'm super excited about it. It's had a little bit of controversy this week that weirdly you get a whole story now, because this news started on like Friday after I did that podcast and then was resolved this morning just a couple of hours ago. So now I can tell you a little story. So with Diablo 4, they announced that they were going to do a competition at launch. And it was a bit of a weird competition because you don't really win anything. They said the first 1,000 people worldwide to reach level 100 in the hardcore mode will get their usernames engraved onto a statue of Lilith. Which I think it's not like they're sending you the statue. This is a statue that will probably exist at the Blizzard campus. There's a bunch of statues there. They'll probably exist there, and they're just going to engrave the players' names on. These are the first 1,000 people that managed to get to level 100 hardcore. For anyone who doesn't know, level 100 hardcore is an insane challenge. It's something that I'll probably do at some point, but I'm not going to do it at launch, because hardcore mode is normal Diablo, but when you die, it deletes your character. So if you die once at all, it deletes your character. Which, that's pretty harsh, because Diablo has lots and lots of mechanics, lots of things that can happen where you can get one shot. There's plenty of the world bosses and stuff like that. They will one shot you. So if you want to get to level 100 in hardcore, which is the maximum level, you've got to play it fairly carefully. You've got to know kind of where your limits are. You've got to make sure you don't accidentally get overwhelmed. The nature of Diablo, there's a lot of RNG in terms of what type of enemies spawn. You could get something really horrible where you get one of the waller enemies that just creates walls around you, and then a different type of enemy that maybe makes a poison cloud or does a lot of the spinning laser things and just utterly destroys you super quickly, and you won't really have a way to come back from that. That's quite scary. So people who make their hardcore characters, put a lot of time theory crafting survival skills, ways to get out of fights. And it means fights will probably take longer, but it means that they also have a lot more escape options. They have a lot more ways to get health back. They have a lot more defense, stuff like that. And so it's kind of like an extreme risk reward mode. So they announced this competition. First 1,000 people to get there will get their name on a statue. But then it also came out, and people have known about this for a while, that reviewers have had access to the game for the last 2 weeks. So reviewers and a lot of big streamers, you know, people who were big Diablo 3 streamers, Diablo 2 streamers, they were invited to play a preview build of the game, you know, to get content together and stuff like that. It was very generous of Blizzard to do this, really, because they're going to have like guides and stuff like that out on day one, which in some ways for me is good because it means I don't need to worry about rushing to get guides up, because what's the point? People already have them up before I've played it. But yeah, so they've let these people play the game. They have deleted their characters. They deleted their characters on Friday, I think. So like people got to review the game, the full game, play through the whole thing, and then they've deleted all their characters. But lots of people in the community were like, but these people have already played through the game. They've already had, you know, in some people's cases, people who played it a lot, probably like 100 hours or more of playtime with Diablo 4. Not just the first 25 levels that we got to play in the beta, but like all the way through to level 100. So they're going to know like the best places to go to get experience, the best items to get, the best quests to do, all of that sort of stuff. They're going to have a big advantage. And this seemed a little bit silly to me, because it's like, yes, they will have an advantage, but how many people really do you think it is that fall into, you know, the middle of that Venn diagram of people who were given early access, so the biggest streamers, content creators, stuff like that, on game reviewers, and then people who are going to take part in the race to get to level 100 in hardcore mode to be one of the first 1,000 to do it? I would say probably the streamers, probably the big content creators, the big Diablo content creators are probably the only ones that fall in that circle. And even then, it won't be all of them, because lots of people who play Diablo are more into, like, they're more into the idea that this is going to have PvP, or they're more into the story and they want to, you know, do a playthrough where they're listening to all the cutscenes. That's what I'm going to do when I stream it, is I'm going to play and we're going to listen to all of the cutscenes. We're going to listen to everyone talking. We're going to follow the story and know who all the characters are and all of that sort of stuff. I'm going to read all the lore. I want to get like properly immersed in this world, because you only get to play through this game first once. You know what I mean? Like after that, you're just replaying it. So that first time where you get to get immersed and you get to get like wrapped up in the story, so the quests actually mean something to you, you only get one chance of that. And if you're rushing through the game, you're going to mess that up. You're going to miss it. So that's what I'm doing. So there's going to be like a handful of people that are going to be in that group who, yes, they have a big advantage. Yes, they're going to be able to get to in the top 1,000 quickly. But also, if they're the biggest Diablo content creators, they're the sort of people that play Diablo all day anyway, they were probably going to get in that top 1,000 just because they have more time, if anything else. You know, if the new Diablo comes out and these people are basically playing for 24 hours a day, you know, I don't know, some of them might be like 10 hours a day or whatever, but they're going to have a lot more time to play than normal people. Surely they were going to get there first anyway. It doesn't really matter. And the prize isn't like you're not getting some money, you're not getting something sent to you. They're literally getting their names on a statue that most people will never see. I'm sure there'll be a video of it, but like most people will never see that statue. So it's like the prize is kind of a token gesture. The prize is essentially meaningless. It's the whole thing's just a little bit of fun. But people got very angry. People got very, very angry, saying like, these people have an advantage. It's not fair. I want this to be a fair race, to be like part of the first 1,000. You know, and I get it that like people like their accolades, people like their rewards. It's the same sort of thing in Call of Duty when we do the Easter eggs and stuff like that. I remember, if you remember in Warzone 1, they did that Easter event where you could just open up eggs. And some of the rewards were the rewards from the Easter eggs. You could get like the Enigma blueprint or the Mud Drawer or Red Room. And there was a bunch of people getting annoyed then, being like, but I did this the hard way. Like I, you know, struggled through this to work it out and stuff like that. But then these people are just getting it for free. And it's like, why do you care? But I know some people do care, because some people care about that sort of, you know, badge of honor that they did something in a video game first, or they did something in a video game like before anyone else. Like it's, I feel like that kind of thing is dying out a little bit. Like I don't, with all the Call of Duty Vanguard Easter eggs, and even some of the Black Ops Cold War ones, I don't know who got first in it. Like I know that like me and Noah and that lot got the D Machine one. And then at the time, I think I vaguely knew who got the Firebase Z one. Then after that, people stopped paying attention. People just didn't care. And with like Modern Warfare 2, with the raids, at first we thought, oh, this is going to be the new race. You know, who's going to be the first one to complete the raids? and I don't have no idea who was the first to complete any of the raids. Like, literally no idea. I think we were the first ones to do the veteran mode on the first raid, but that was more because other people weren't trying than because we were particularly quick. There just wasn't many people trying. I think like a lot of that kind of thing, at least in Call of Duty, is being forgotten about. Like, people just don't care about it anymore. But obviously these Diablo people got very angry. And then Rod Ferguson, who's the game director, came out on Twitter and said, why do these people have an advantage? We're deleting their characters. And that was a bit of a weird tone-deaf thing to say, because it's like everyone was like, well, think about it. Like, these people have played through the game already. They know, they have all this experience. They have all this knowledge. They're going to know like what builds work with late game stuff. They're going to know what sort of areas to go to, all of that sort of stuff. And then this morning, they changed the rules and restrictions for this competition to say anybody who got a pre-release copy is no longer eligible, that they can't do it. So if anyone who was even invited to play the game early now can't take part in this competition. So those people won. Those people are like, yay, now it's fair. Everyone's got a fair shot. But it's not fair, because now you've got these big content creators, the big Diablo content creators. You know, these are the Diablo super fans. The people that love Diablo so much. They went into full-time streaming a game, even when it wasn't that popular, you know, even through the later years of Diablo 3, where it wasn't the biggest thing ever. These people who have, like, dedicated a big chunk of their life to this game series, they now can't even compete. They can't get involved in any way. And it's like, that's kind of bad for them. That kind of sucks, doesn't it? That's kind of harsh. I would feel like if I wanted, you know, if I was trying to get my name on this statue, I'd like it to be up there alongside the biggest people in the Diablo community, like the biggest names in the Diablo community. But now all of those people are exempt. So all the people that go on there are going to be people that, you know, no one's ever heard of. It's just going to be a load of random usernames, essentially. I feel like they've ruined the competition by doing it. I think like a better solution would be, and I saw it suggested quite a lot over the weekend, a better solution would be, why didn't they do this for season 1? So Diablo works in seasons. It will be when the game comes out, it's like the pre-season, and then season 1 will come out in like a month or something, and that's basically there'll be seasonal armor, there'll be a few changes to like enemies and dungeons, and there'll be a new armor set come out and stuff like that if it's like Diablo 3. And then everyone has to start characters, like hardcore characters. If you want them to be part of that season, you have to start them fresh. Anyone who wants to play a season has to start a new character for that season. You do it every season. It's kind of like the way they keep the game going. And so like that would have made sense. It's like, have the preseason, everyone can play it at their own pace. Some people have played it before, fine, who cares? But then by the time season 1 comes out, everyone who's seriously involved in this competition will have played the game through, will have finished it, probably will have got a hardcore character to level 100 already. So then they'll all be kind of at an equal footing, ready to start it. That would have made a lot more sense. But like this, I just don't think this is a good solution. Now, I feel bad for all of those big creators that, yeah, they were lucky enough to get sent like the game early, and that's awesome, and it's going to be amazing for their content. But now they can't take part in this race, which would have been good content as well. You know, it's something that I'll probably watch when Diablo 4 streams are happening. I'll probably go and watch some of the biggest streamers and like watch their hardcore attempts, because hardcore attempts are really fun to watch. Like I said, I will definitely do one on my stream after I finish the game with my first character. I'll probably then start up a barbarian and start on hardcore, because it's like, you know, watching someone where, you know, if they die, they literally lose like hundreds of hours of progress. It's very stressful for the player, but quite fun for the audience. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. It just seems a little bit strange. Richie said just add an extra name or two to statue. Yeah, I'd love to know how many people it is. Like, I'd love to know how many people were, you know, given this early copy. I don't think it's that many. I imagine it's probably like dozens of people rather than hundreds. But we'll see. So yeah, so that's like the big Diablo drama of the last few days. And it's very silly. Like I said, like there's no real prize. Like the people who win don't get anything. They just have their name somewhere, which is cool enough. You know, I know people like that sort of thing. You go to theme parks and people have their names in bricks on the floor and stuff. People love that kind of stuff. I just find the anger over it a bit bewildering. Going back to the Call of Duty community night we did on Saturday, that's kind of a good example of, there were prizes there. People could have won COD points. People could have won a black cell code. And yet still, most people didn't care. Like, most people were just playing and having a bit of a laugh and having a bit of fun. They didn't really care whether or not they won, like whether or not they were the ones to get the prize or not. They were just happy for whoever did, and that's really cool. Um, so I just saw that someone became a member, and I think I missed it at some point. So I apologize for how I missed that. I can't even see the notification at all. So yeah, apologies to whoever became a new member, but I appreciate you very, very much. Right. Then for the next piece of gaming news today, Team 17. Team 17, for anyone who doesn't know, they're like a long-term British developer. They made Worms, like they're really famous for making Worms. I think they made Cannon Fodder, didn't they, as well? But since then, they've been a publisher for a while now. And they tend to publish like slightly quirkier indie games and stuff. They've got a cryptic new game coming out called Redacted. And it was kind of interesting, like when they posted it with a load of like documents where nearly every word was redacted on it. They had a Morse code message as a tweet. The Morse code translated to 31st of May, so we assume on Wednesday we'll hear more about this game. There was a teaser trailer that gave us the impression that it's like a World War II game, so it's kind of focusing on secret missions in World War II. I'm just thinking like there's a chance that this could be something where it's like something that we could get into, you know, if it's like a sort of puzzly game, lots and lots of like codes and secrets and stuff like that, that might be the sort of thing my like OG community, the people who are here from like Pawn Takes Pawn days, they might be super into this. They might be really excited about this. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on this one because we don't know much about it yet. I don't even know, you know, is it a action game? Is it an adventure game? Is it a point and click game? I've got no idea yet. Even if it was just something where you could like sift through documents and find like codes and stuff like that, you know, like Papers, Please, but for World War II spycraft. I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be cool. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. Other news, the Golem developers are apparently working on another Lord of the Rings game. I saw Eurogamer reporting on this. Apparently, Daedalic, the people who made the Golem game, which has been pretty universally panned at this point, people have found that they got a €2 million grant from the German government to be working on a fantasy game. And the way they describe it, it's very kind of vague and ambiguous, probably because, you know, the announcement hasn't been made that it's a Lord of the Rings game yet. So, but people are pretty sure it is a Lord of the Rings game. And it's like, how's that going to work? Like, are the Lord of the Rings license holders going to be okay with them releasing another game? When like the Golem game, you know, now when people think of Lord of the Rings games, at least for a while, people are gonna think of Golem. You know, imagine how annoyed like Amazon must be that they're working on this, you know, for the second time. They cancelled one Lord of the Rings MMO, now they're making another one. How annoyed must they be when you've got like people thinking, oh, a Lord of the Rings game, like that Golem game, like now I'll pass. Because I know there's like very intelligent people like us that understand that different development studios can work on the same license, you know. Just because one company makes a Star Wars game you don't like, that doesn't mean all Star Wars games are bad. But lots of people don't think like that. You know, lots of normal people who don't play games very much won't think like that. They'll be like, oh, it's a Lord of the Rings game. That last Lord of the Rings game I played was terrible. I'll pass on this one. Like, that Golem game has done a lot of damage to the brand, I think. It will take, you know, something pretty big to fix that. It's interesting as well, the Daedalic put out a statement about the Golem game and how bad it was. They put out a tweet just apologizing, and they did a sort of like that weird thing that I think CD Projekt Red did with Cyberpunk, where they put out a thing saying like, oh, we're really sorry people haven't had the experience we wanted, you know, we're going to work hard to fix all the bugs and performance issues and make it better. And it's like, the bugs aren't the problem. Like, the bugs were a problem, but they weren't the problem. Like, the problem was that the game was bad. You know, the game was bad in basically every way. And that was, you know, my argument with Cyberpunk when it came out, was that I played all the way through Cyberpunk. Like, I got all the way through that game, and the problem for Cyberpunk, actually, no, I don't know if I finished it. I got really close to the end, and then I think I was just so bored that I stopped playing and then just read what happened. But the Cyberpunk came out, and lots of the reviews focused heavily on the performance issues and, you know, the console performance and all of the bugs and stuff like that. And they came out saying, like, oh yeah, we're really sorry about the bugs. We're going to fix them all. So, you know, it'll be the game you wanted and stuff. And it's like, when I was playing it, the bugs were annoying, but I mean, a lot of time they were quite funny. But the problem with Cyberpunk to me was that the game was bad. You know, I was someone that really loved The Witcher 2 and The Witcher 3. I thought they were fantastic games. I was really excited about Cyberpunk. And it's like, I played it and it's like, the story was really bad. You know, they made a big deal of like, oh, you can choose your origin. You come from these 3 different places, whether you're a nomad or whether you're a corpo or whether you're like a street rat. And it's like, that doesn't matter at all. You know, it like changes some cutscenes and like one mission at the very beginning of the game. Then afterwards, hardly anyone ever mentions it. The streets were completely devoid of life. Like, you'd have civilians walking and basically not reacting to hardly anything. They'd all just crouch at the same time if anything happened at all, but they would never really be doing anything. Like, there was never any life or anything. There was no police or anything. You know, you do something bad, you don't have police cars showing up, you don't see police chases and stuff like you kind of saw in the trailers. There was no destruction or anything. For a game focused all around hacking, the hacking was insanely simple. It was like, oh, you can hack turrets and they'll shoot your enemies, or you can hack things and they will distract people. You know, whether it's a screen, whether it's a speaker, whatever it is, all you will do is distract people. They will make the enemies go, huh? And like, that's kind of it. Or you can stun the enemies. It was like just super basic and not interesting, not immersive at all. And then the story was written like, you know, it seemed like it was written either for or possibly by a teenage boy. You know, it's all about this kind of hero worship of like, look how cool Keanu Reeves is. Like, he's a badass. He's rude to women, but women love him. He's got a massive gun that blows people's arms and legs off. He's a rock star, but he doesn't care about fame. He cares about like the true, you know, true meaning of freedom or whatever. It was like that kind of thing. And then, you know, like every character seemed like a bit of a cliche. Every character seemed very shallow and two-dimensional. The dialogue was really kind of cringy. It just felt bad. Loads of the side quests were just kind of busy work, like they weren't interesting. There was like 1 or 2 side quests that had kind of a fun joke or a fun reference in them, but most of them were just really boring and took way too long. It was, oh, and then the combat, like, the shooting didn't feel very good. It was fine, but it didn't feel very good. But then, like, you quickly learn that, like, there was a couple of skills that just made the entire game super easy. Like, there was one that let you have big claws on your arms, and then you could, like, jump really far and kill people. And you could basically do one-hit kills on anyone. So it's like, oh, so I don't really need to stealth or hack or do anything like that. I can just run into every fight and jump on people and stab them. And I'll just do that for literally the entire game and get through it. And it never felt like cool or satisfying because all the animation was a bit janky and stuff. It just was wrong. And so all of those problems were massive problems with Cyberpunk. But they were like, I think CD Projekt Red did a really good job of being like, oh yeah, we know the game's not very good. It's those glitches, isn't it? But we can fix those. It's like, you're not going to fix the fact that the game's bad. And I think Golem's the same thing, where the developers are trying really hard to be like, oh yeah, those pesky bugs, but we'll get them fixed and then the game will be good, right? It's like, nope, no, it won't. You can fix the bugs, it won't really change anything. The game will still be a very, very bad game. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a weird one there. That game was bad enough that I at least won't be interested in any games that they do unless it gets incredibly good reviews and stuff like that. Andy Smith said, the bar for the next Witcher game they've teased is now so high when you combine the quality of the series and the Cyberpunk debacle. Hopefully it's been a lesson learned. Yeah, I mean, with Witcher 4, like they've said that they're working on it. I really, really hope that they kind of cut it back again, like be a bit less ambitious. It's like, it's really obvious to me it seems obvious that CD Projekt Red's strengths are not in writing and they're not in character creation or anything like that. Like, CD Projekt Red's strengths was in making a mature fantasy world. Like, that kind of, like, world building, finding interesting ways to do side quests, finding interesting ways to, like, lay out the world and stuff like that. Like, that was cool. But, like, The Witcher, you know, The Witcher did well because they could take so much of the writing and the character development from the books and from the comic books that have come out since. You know, like, they had someone else doing like the sort of actual like creating the characters for them and creating some of these stories, and then they could just kind of adapt it, and that worked out quite well. When they were like let loose to make their own things in Cyberpunk, they just did a terrible job of it. Like, just really shockingly bad. It's, you know, similar thing with the people who made the Game of Thrones TV show, isn't it? It's like when they were adapting George R. R. Martin stuff, it was kind of interesting and it was kind of good. Once they were let off the leash to make their own things, it was bad. Like really, you know, not good at all. And I think CD Projekt Red are the same, to be honest. Really similar. So the next news story is Nintendo have asked Valve to take the Dolphin emulator off Steam. So it hasn't actually come out on Steam. It's about to come out on Steam. And then Nintendo have filed, you know, a cease and desist or something saying, hey, can you maybe not release that thing on Steam that will let people play our old games for free? Because, like, I get that there's lots of people who say when you have emulators like Dolphin, lots of people buy a game and then they want to use the emulated version because it runs at a higher frame rate or blah, 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 blah. You know, better resolution. They can play it on PC, whatever, use mods, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm sure there are people that do that. I am 100% convinced there are definitely people that do that. But then I don't think they're the majority. And I think it would be really naive to think that the number of people who use emulators for games are buying those games as well. It's like loads of people have been posting videos and streams and stuff of them playing Tears of the Kingdom at 60 frames a second, at 4K, you know, with everything turned up on emulators, on Switch emulators. And it's like, how many of those people do you think went out and bought a copy? Like, how many of those people do you think went out and thought, like, I don't need to do this, it doesn't change the way I can play it at all, but I'm going to go give Nintendo 70 quid of my money, or 60 quid, or whatever it is. I just, you know, it's naive to think that people did. Like, I'm sure some people did, and some people would have done it, especially like streamers and stuff, to be sort of performative about it. But it's definitely, you know, to try and avoid any trouble in the future. But everybody knows that when you use emulators, people are just downloading games for free. People are downloading ROMs for free. And as much as the people who make the emulators can be like, well, we're not making the ROMs, we're not telling people where to find the ROMs or anything like that. It's like, yeah, but we live on the internet. Like, keeping information like that a secret doesn't really work. Like, you are making the thing that lets people play pirated games, essentially. I would argue, and I might be wrong here, I would guess that the majority of pirated games in Europe and America are on emulators. Like, that's, I imagine that's where most people are pirating games, is on emulators. It happens a lot. Now, with this whole Dolphin emulator thing, so basically what I'm saying is, it's not surprising that Nintendo didn't want Dolphin on Steam. Like, that's not shocking at all. What is a little bit more interesting and kind of adds a little bit of nuance to it is that it's not easy to play old Nintendo games. Like, Nintendo's attempts with Virtual Console and stuff like that are always shockingly bad. Like, they put up bad ports of games. They do a stupid thing where, like, if you bought a game on a Virtual Console on the Wii, you don't have it on the Switch, or if you bought it on the DS, you don't have it on the Switch or whatever, or on the Wii U or on the GameCube. Like, if you've bought these games before, you now don't own them on future consoles. And so a lot of people do own these games. A lot of people do have these games from the past, and now they can't play them. But even then, a lot of people would like to play these games from the past, and there's not really a good way to do it. Like, finding a working, like, Wii console or a GameCube console is only going to get harder over time. And finding hard copies of Wii games and GameCube games is only going to get harder over time. So it's like, if Nintendo are serious about, like, hey, we don't want you playing these Wii and GameCube games for free, maybe they should provide a better way of accessing them. Like, maybe they should provide a way where you could buy them on the Switch. You know, it's like Virtual Console, I know, has some N64 stuff now, but it's still, as far as I know, doesn't have GameCube or Wii games on there. And it's like, that feels like a real shame. Like, that feels like, you know, Nintendo are a company that have loads of old games that hold up well, lots of old classics that hold up well. And it's weirdly difficult to play it. Like, I don't know right now, and, you know, it might be easy, I don't know. I don't know how easy it would be if I wanted to play Wind Waker now on the Switch. Like, is there a way to play Wind Waker on the Switch? Can you play the Wii U version or the GameCube version? Like, obviously the cartridges, you know, it has cartridges, doesn't take discs or anything like that. So you can't use the original discs or anything like that at all. Is there a downloadable version of it that will let you play it? And it's like, you know, then there's plenty of other games, like Nintendo games from the past, that you just, I don't know how you'd be able to access them. I don't know how you'd play them. So I think, like, we've seen this before with piracy, where piracy's been a big problem for various media, whether it was, you know, music's the obvious example, where people used to download music all the time. You know, I went to university at the time where, like, LimeWire and you know, Napster was just kind of closing down, but LimeWire and Aries and torrenting and stuff like that were just really taking off. And also, if you had your, I don't know if this is still true, if you're on iTunes and you're on a local area network with another PC that's also running iTunes, you can listen to each other's music. When we found that out in halls in university, you know, you're living in a building on a local area network with thousands of other people. Suddenly, you could see everybody's music and just listen to it for free. Like, that kind of piracy just was huge back then. Like, everyone I knew who was into music was downloading music. Like, just because it was quite hard to find CDs sometimes, and CDs were like, you know, 10, 12 pounds for 10 songs. And then even then, lots of CDs just didn't get released in the UK, or, you know, it was very, very hard to find them, especially, you know, live recordings, really hard to find, like, bootlegs and stuff like that. And then Spotify came out, and it was like, oh, you can just pay us £10 a month, and then you can listen to all of this stuff legally. And nearly everyone I know did that. Like, it felt like music piracy almost died out overnight. Like, it just disappeared. And a similar thing happened, you know, with Netflix, where suddenly it was like, oh, now you can watch all of these old film stuff, and you can watch a load of new films, you can watch a load of TV series and stuff, just by paying £10 a month. We'll do that and stop pirating things. Like, again, it used to be maybe just after I finished university, so sort of like the, you know, going on for 2010 or so, loads of people I knew would be down torrenting films and torrenting, like, TV shows and stuff like that. And I know stuff like that does still happen, especially for things, you know, anime and stuff, where it's harder to get it in this country. But with the sort of rise of streaming services, it's so much easier for people to do it legit. Most people I know just do it legitimately now. They just pay for it if there's an option. And then it gets very frustrating when something comes out, like, you know, when the Halo series came out on Paramount Plus, and Paramount was like, oh yeah, we'll come out in the UK in a few months' time. It's like, oh, so we just can't watch it. That kind of sucks. That still happens quite a lot. And now, you know, there's so many different streaming services. I think there's some people like, well, I'm not going to pay for Apple TV just so I can watch, you know, Severance or Bear or whatever. I'm going to just pirate that thing. I think we're getting back into the time where it's a bit too awkward to get some TV shows, so people go back to pirating it. But for a while, they came to a proper arrangement where people were like, we're happy to pay for the thing that we're consuming because you've made it easy. You've made it easy to do it. And it's like, Nintendo need to do that rather than just trying to ban all the emulators, which, don't get me wrong, I do think they should do. I think that's within their rights. It makes sense for them to ban these emulators and stuff. But they need to provide a legal way to play their games. Like, they need to make it so, like people are saying in chat, work with the emulators, work with the people who are designing these emulators. Because we know for a fact Nintendo have used the emulated versions of some games, the emulators that fans have made, to release the virtual consoles versions of their games. They need to work with them and get, like, legal versions of these emulators that you pay your subscription for, whatever, or you buy the games individually. Just make it so you can do it legitimately. It makes so much sense. And yeah, Richie's saying there about streaming, like, sports. Like, the only sport I'm interested in is Formula One. If I want to watch Formula One, I have to buy, in the UK, if I want to watch it live, I have to buy a bundle that's like £30 a month to watch what is sometimes one race of Formula One. You know, sometimes there's one race a month. Sometimes there's like 2 or 3, but a lot of the time there's not many. And it's like, that's no way worth it. So I can do a thing where I pay like £13 for one race, and I do that, but then I don't get to watch qualifying or anything like that. It's just kind of a stupid thing where it's like, that £30 makes sense to someone who watches a load of football as well, or watches a load of whatever other sport. But if you just watch Formula One, that's a terrible deal. So I can understand why lots of people try and find like dodgy websites to try and watch it. It's really, really annoying. It's really difficult. And, you know, like, as soon as someone starts down that rabbit hole of like trying to find dodgy streaming sites, they're also opening themselves up to viruses and all those kind of problems. and they have like, God knows what other things are going on those websites. You're opening yourself up to like the dodgy side of the internet that I've been, lucky enough that I can afford to get a lot of the entertainment I want. I can buy it or I get sent it for free. That I've just sort of cut myself off from that part of the internet. And it's so nice. It's so nice not having to go to those dodgy websites with like loads of pop-ups and stuff like that. Not having to do any of that. It's really cool. I just wish more entertainment publishers would find ways to make their stuff accessible. Like that should be their focus of like, can we get this in the hands of as many people as possible all the time? Because otherwise they're going to try and find ways to get it for free. Otherwise they're going to try and go through all of these illegitimate things of doing it. It's really annoying. It sucks. F1 in the UK is such a pain. It really is. Like my dad's really into Formula One. I saw him yesterday, and he was saying that he just watched it on Channel 4. Like he has to watch the replay. He can't watch it live because it's just too expensive. It's just too much money. It's utterly ridiculous. Hate it. And then imagine if I'd paid like 13 quid to watch Monaco yesterday and like bloody nothing happens. It'd be terrible. Anyway, we've got 3 more news stories and we've only got 4 more minutes. So I'm going to rattle these off quickly. We'll talk about the other topic I was going to tomorrow. It's a spicy one. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So make sure you tune in for the podcast tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe. So Last of Us Factions isn't ready to show yet. Naughty Dog have come out. Obviously, people were surprised. I was surprised at the PlayStation Showcase. There was no Last of Us Factions. Naughty Dog put a tweet out saying, like, yeah, we're still working on the game, but it wasn't ready to show yet. We decided it wasn't a good time to show it off. So you'll see more from it in the future. And like, that was it. They didn't really say anything else. Then Bloomberg, like Jason Schreier's done an article saying, and I'm always a bit wary of, like, I don't really like the stuff that Jason Schreier does where it's leaking announcements and things like that. So I always want to stay away from any rumors or leaks that are like spoiling future announcements. But a news story like this is a bit more interesting where it's not spoiling anything in the future. So don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything about Last of Us. But he said that apparently Sony did this thing where some of you might know Jim Ryan, who's in charge of Sony at the moment, is like obsessed with games of service. He wants like there to be like 5 big AAA games of service games before the end of the year or something on PlayStation. And apparently they got Bungie, when they acquired Bungie, part of that deal was they got Bungie to look at what all of these studios were doing who were working on games of service games. Because Bungie obviously have done really well with Destiny. Destiny's been very successful. And so they looked at all of these other games and how they were going in development. And apparently, Bungie were like, yeah, Last of Us Factions, we don't know if there's anything here that's going to keep people playing. Like, they looked at it and they thought, this just isn't a thing that players are going to stick with. And so apparently, Sony's response have been to, like, downsize that project, to, like, reduce the scope of Last of Us Factions. So rather than it being like this huge thing that I think a lot of people were getting hyped for, including me, I was like, this could be the big extraction shooter we're waiting for. This could be the big AAA polished extraction shooter. Apparently, they're downsizing that and like loads of people have been moved off the project. Naughty Dog have said that they're working on a single player project as well. So it sounds like Last of Us Factions might not be such a big deal, if it even ever comes out. Like, I think if after this amount of time, a game like that is being like downsized and stuff, there's a decent chance that they'll just be like, yeah, like for something like Last of Us, releasing no game is probably better than releasing a mediocre game. That's the approach a lot of companies like Rockstar have always had with Grand Theft Auto. Like, they'd rather not release any games than release like a mid Grand Theft Auto game because they don't want to hurt the brand. And I imagine that's probably what will happen with Last of Us. I don't think we'll ever see Factions. I don't think that game will ever come out, which is a shame because, I was excited about it, but then again, we were excited about it based on 3 pieces of concept art and a lot of wishful thinking. So we weren't really based on anything real. It's like nearly everything from that PlayStation Showcase, other than Spider-Man and Phantom Blade, whatever. Yeah, Phantom Blade. Other than that, like, we didn't really see much gameplay of hardly any other good games, and it's like, I mean, I suppose Dragon's Dogma and Alan Wake we did as well. But all those CGI games where, people are really excited about the new Bungie game, or people are really, Marathon, or people are really excited about Metal Gear Solid and stuff. It's like, we haven't actually seen anything from those games yet, like, at all. So it's quite hard to get excited about it just on wishful thinking, because otherwise you hype it up to the point of you have your dream game in your head. You don't think about any kind of realistic constraints or anything. And the real game's never going to live up to that. Like, never going to live up to everything you possibly want. Then the last couple of bits, we've got a couple of little Call of Duty bits, but the only one that I think we're going to talk about today, because we can talk about the other one anytime, is CDL Champs. CDL Champs was this weekend. I saw, sometimes when I'm preparing for this podcast, I just quickly look through Call of Duty Twitter, and I saw the CDL Champs was being talked about. And I kind of remember that when we did the community night on Saturday, people were saying that, like, oh, you know, it's a bit odd that you're running this at the same time as CDL Champs. And it's like, the person who chose the time for this was actually the Call of Duty UK community manager person, like influencer manager or whatever you want to call it. And so it wasn't really my decision. It's like, it's almost like Call of Duty themselves had forgotten about CDL Champs happening. But yeah, it's just, I thought it was weird that it was announced 8 hours ago, you know, who won CDL Champs. I don't want to say it. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't watched it yet. But I looked at it and was like, okay, I literally have no idea who was playing against who. I don't know what modes they're playing anymore, what maps they're playing. I looked at the list of names of the people on the team that won, never heard of any of them. And I think that's a problem. Like, I know I tried to get interested in CDL when it first started. And I kind of followed it for a few matches, and then I was kind of like, I never got super excited about it. I never got interested. I don't think it's a fun thing to watch. I don't think there's like interesting personalities in it or anything like that. They don't have like stories. They need something like, you know, Formula One's Drive to Survive. They need something like that for CDL to sort of build up some stories or something. But it's just, I think it's a problem for Call of Duty if they're pumping a load of money into the CDL stuff, and they're putting a lot of money into this, and people who are really invested in Call of Duty like me don't even really know anything about it. I didn't know it was happening. I didn't know the championship finals were happening last weekend. And that's kind of like, that's not good, is it? Like, that's a problem. There's something's gone wrong there. So I don't know. I don't know what they need to do about it. I mean, I think just cancel the whole thing and let some fan organization do it instead. Stop pumping money into it. Like, even the Call of Duty League Twitter account, they put out a thing saying who the winners were, and it got like 2,700 likes, which I don't think that's that great. Like 2,700 for something like that, you know, for the amount of money that had got pumped into that tournament, that seems like maybe it wasn't like the biggest thing. You know, out of that, sorry, that's 2,700 likes out of 270,000 views. I don't know. I don't know. Like, the COD League has 1.3 million followers apparently, and then you've got 2,000, nearly 3,000 people who are bothering to like the thing where they talk about the people that won. It just seems strange to me. It seems like something's gone wrong, that people just don't care about it that much. And yeah, we might end up, depending on whether there's any other big news, we might end up talking a bit more about that tomorrow, about what's happening with Call of Duty and their publicity and their popularity and stuff like that. It's not all doom and gloom. Like, Call of Duty is still constantly either number 1 or 2 in the Xbox most played games. It's still obviously doing well, but there's something going wrong with their publicity, with like their, you know, the overall image of it and how people are interested in it. That's a problem. Anyway, that's ending on a bit of a downer, but I'm going to stop the podcast there. So thank you very much to everyone that's listened, that's watched. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps a bunch, and make sure you're back here tomorrow at 9 a.m. for the recording of the next episode. And if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you follow or whatever else you do on your podcast services. So thank you very much to everyone that's been listening, and goodbye.